Hello and welcome to Back to the Future, the show where we talk about movies past, present, and future. One of our favorite things to do on this show is to go in the past 30 years, just like the plot to Back to the Future, and look at the movies that came out before us. This week, we're taking a look at Martin Scorsese's The Color of Money. Hey guys, I'm your host, Giovanni Carlo. I'm here with my partner in time, John Vandeloo. Today we're talking about 1986's The Color of Money, directed by Martin Scorsese, starring Paul Newman and Tom Cruise. A very different movie for Martin Scorsese. I think everyone knows him for a lot of his crime movies like Goodfellas, The Departed, more recently The Wolf of Wall Street, and also classics like Taxi Driver and Raging Bull. He's one of the greatest living directors, so we couldn't wait to kind of look at one of his more unusual movies in the way that, it's a sports movie, which I don't think is something that you really expect from Martin Scorsese. So, John, what did you think about this as far as the Martin Scorsese pictures you've seen and kind of throwing this one into the mix?
You can definitely tell that this is a Martin Scorsese film. Obviously, with the same cinematographer, Michael Ballhaus, who's worked on almost all of Martin Scorsese's pictures, you're going to have very similar camera work, those fluid shots that Scorsese's really good at. He just brings you into like the scenes, like the opening shot or the opening scene in the bar is such an interesting look at how Martin Scorsese directs films. Just how like the fluid of the room works and the way that you feel where everyone is and everything that's going on. It just brings you into it. You're like, this is Martin Scorsese. This is what he's good at. And it's really enjoyable to watch.
I think that we definitely know, I think from a movie like his very first in Mean Streets, Martin Scorsese knows how to film a bar room, okay? This is like his wheelhouse. I think that the first scene is extremely strong. I love the way that, like, when you have John Turturro's character coming in and out and grabbing the money while Paul Newman is kind of like, wooing this woman, telling her about bourbon, which honestly, that's some of the best parts of the movie, I think, is when these characters get to be these smooth hustlers. I think that's, actually, to me, that's the main, like, entree of this movie. The pool's kind of just a side thing. But I think it's actually the second scene where you really get to see a little bit more of that Scorsese-ness, the second barroom scene, when it really is that kind of that wider shot. You see him as they're kind of tricking Vincent into doing what they want him to do.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's the interesting interplay between those two characters, with Fast Eddie and Carmen. When you get the first initial naive Vincent, and they're kind of, pushing him in the direction that they want him to go. And the way that he films that bar room, it's very Scorsese. And I think that's one of the things that he brings to this movie that's a huge positive, is that visual energy that he's able to kind of infuse in something like this. So this movie is also an Oscar-nominated, an Oscar-winning film. Paul Newman won the Oscar for Best Actor in a Leading Role. He was also nominated. Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, she was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And then it also got Best Writing for an Adapted Screenplay and also Set and Art Direction as well. But I think that one of the strong things about this movie is gotta be its two leads. Paul Newman returning to his iconic role as Fast Eddie Felson from The Hustler, which is also a movie I have not seen. The Hustler.
Yeah, I've not seen The Hustler either.
I probably should. You guys can yell at me in the comments for not having seen it. But Paul Newman, especially at this time, this guy was Hollywood royalty. He had iconic performances in movies like Cool Hand Luke, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and maybe for more recent viewers, Road to Perdition, and he was also Doc Hudson in Cars, I think one of the last roles.
God, he was excellent in Road to Perdition, too.
Yeah, that's a movie that I really enjoyed, and I really did enjoy him in that film quite a bit.
I really enjoyed Paul Newman. Eddie Felson was a fun character, this old, suave hustler with a love for money. But I really enjoyed seeing Tom Cruise. We just reviewed, Top Gun earlier this year, and I think seeing a young Tom Cruise on screen, you kind of know what you're gonna get with Tom Cruise. Mm-hmm. But I loved seeing the opening scene when he comes in. You see that you still get to see the idiosyncrasies that Tom Cruise has. The kung fu pool stick scene, which is just
super lame. It is
super lame, and the hair.
Yeah, he has quite the pompadour going on in this.
It's the pierced ear.
Yeah, the pierced ear too. That's actually kind of it's just such an 80s style to have. and I don't think I've ever really seen Tom Cruise in any other movie look like this. But no, he has like a ton of energy. I love how Fast Eddie has a scene where he tells him that he's a flake, a perfect flake. And I think that this is a movie role, I mean, that's like completely tailor-made for Tom Cruise. Because he just kind of is that guy, this high energy, just sort of enormous dork, honestly. Like,
Yeah.
I as him flipping the pool sticks was lame, but I like that the movie acknowledges that it's kind of supposed to be lame. That it is over the top, like, that's not what Fast Eddie's all about. And he tries to show him another way. He tries to teach this young protege how to be a hustler. Not just a skilled pool player, but how to make actual money doing it. And I think that that's the strong part of this movie is watching this character from this other movie that people know, taking this new character under his wing. And I think that's the thing that's really interesting about their relationship. You see from the very first scene, you see that he ignites something in Fast Eddie Felsen that makes him want to do this. He's living a fine, comfortable life. I mean, they even talk about how nice his car is, how nice his life is. He makes good money selling booze. He enjoys it. I mean, you see him enjoying his time there in the bar with that lady up until he sees this kid and this energy this kid brings, because he already has John Turturro as kind of his shark in the water there, kind of showing him how to be a hustler, how to make them both money. But then he sees this guy that reminds him of him, and it makes him want to go back on the road and grasp whatever that was when he was the hustler in 1961's The Hustler.
I think one of the most surprising things about this movie too was the fact that Tom Cruise is, even though he is very Tom Cruise-y, it isn't exact. It's catered differently. Vincent is arrogant like Maverick.
Yeah.
But he is still insecure.
Oh yeah, totally.
And he isn't very trusting. And he is kind of a dork, like you said. So he is kind of being like, I love that opening scene, like you stated earlier in the bar, because he is kind of being hustled himself.
Yeah. Well, they're attempting to, but he's just got too much skill. You know, so the only thing that's kind of negative about this movie, though, and as much as I really like the interplay between these two characters, is that when it gets to the end of this movie where they end up getting pitted against each other, Fast Eddie ends up having a stumble where, as he says, he shows them his ass, and he gets himself hustled by a young Forrest Whitaker in a very, very nice small role, really kind of in a lot of ways as one of the stronger performances that we see.
Yeah.
And it inspires Eddie to play pool again. Now, the plot of the movie is that they're trying to get to this tournament in Atlantic City. Eddie decides that he's going to join the tournament and face off with Tom Cruise. The only thing, though, is that to this point, though, they're both con men and they're hustlers, and as fun as that is to watch, it didn't really quite make me want to root for either of these characters. I think that, like, in the beginning, Tom Cruise's character is dumb and over intense, but he's sweet. And I think you like that about him. But by the end of it, he loses that sweetness. He gets kind of lured into Eddie's world of being a hustler. So I think that when you get toward the end of it, it's really hard. I didn't feel like I had a dog in this race a little bit. I found it to be interesting, but at the same time, I didn't quite connect or really like either of these characters or really root for either one of them, but I just did find watching them to be interesting.
Yeah, I had the same thoughts on the movie, honestly. I felt like the movie, I was expecting the movie to be so much more, with it being Martin Scorsese, and I was expecting something with a big payoff. You know, that message at the end. Something that really spoke to me, and it kind of just was, it just kind of kept going, and until you got to the end, which, I mean, it's set up nice, it's directed well, it still has great cinematography and art direction, like the scene in the pool room at the end, like the way the mirrors and the way it looks, the stage is really awesome. It's very, like, visually pleasing.
No, I think that's one of the things, though, about it. I think that it in a way, it's very flat. You know, there's not, there's some really great character work, but when you really look at the movie, Eddie and Vincent kind of switch roles.
Yeah.
And I mean, that is interesting to watch, but at the same time, it is kind of a very flat movie in that way. I think that we're used to having these huge, like, peaks and valleys inside of a Scorsese flick, you know, where the stakes, I think, are just a bit higher. You know, you life and death and family and you know, jail time, and there's all these stakes where this is just kind of more of a lighter character piece. And I think that it's a strength, but I think it's also something that maybe doesn't launch it in the upper echelon of Scorsese's work.
Yeah, and I think honestly the biggest problem with this movie is the fact that it is a Martin Scorsese film. If it would have been almost anybody else, this movie would be more accepted, I think, or even considered even better.
Yeah, I didn't think that watching it. I didn't think that you really needed someone of Martin Scorsese's talent in order to pull this movie off. I think that a lot of people could have directed this, but I think though it still benefits from having his touch, the way that he can move the camera, even in little scenes. They're sitting at a diner, but the movement of the camera is still interesting. It still keeps you engaged. But at the same time, did it need this? Not really.
One of my favorite scenes in this movie is when they go into that one pool room to hustle a bunch of guys, and they go in as strangers. So Tom Cruise is sitting there, and he's going to play some pool, and he's going to, I think he's going to lose a little bit, win a little bit. Either way, they're hustling, these guys. And Paul Newman walks in with Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio, and he's like groping on her, touching her ass, and like just feeling her up, and Tom Cruise is getting pissed. And he doesn't really know what's going on. Like, is Paul Newman playing me right now? Is he hustling me right now? I thought it was one of my favorite scenes. And Paul Newman comes out and he's like, $500. I'll play anyone in here but for $500. And then a guy comes out and says $1,000. So they did their job. They baited that guy out.
You know, I think it was really interesting looking at the information for this movie that Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was actually nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that there was interesting things about the Carmen character, but they really didn't give quite enough. And I didn't really quite see where maybe this was an Oscar-nominated performance from her. I think that the things we're interested in about Carmen is the fact that, especially at the beginning, she was the character that understood the game. I thought that was interesting, that she understood the hustle part.
Yeah, Paul Newman actually comes to her first.
Yeah, I think in the way that, like, you know, yes, Tom Cruise is the protege, but she's the one that gets it and knows how to make... She can turn the neck to turn his head the right way that Paul Newman needs him to look. But at the same time, yeah, I really didn't quite see how this was an Oscar-nominated performance. And there was definitely a storyline between her and Paul Newman that they tried to make happen, but I don't think they gave enough. I think that this is also based off a novel, so I'm sure in the novel there's probably more about that kind of... that secondary storyline there between these two characters. I felt like either you need to really give that some time or give it some sort of payoff or kind of exclude it. I felt like there's like 15 minutes of this movie probably could have been shaved off to a nice like hour 45, and I think this movie would have been really much tighter. So we've talked about some of the positives and the negatives of this film. So we're going to get into then our final summaries and grades for this movie. So John, what's your final summary and your grade for The Color of Money?
You know, The Color of Money is an interesting film dealing with pride, greed, hustling, and the competitiveness that we can have for sports or any entertainment that we might find enjoyable. I did find myself relating to Tom Cruise at times. I don't think I could throw a game ever. I am super competitive in everything I do, whether it be playing with little kids. I will win. I am going to win every single time. So there's aspects of that I really enjoyed of the movie, and I did relate to. The movie had, it has fun elements. It has great direction. It has great cinematography. But overall, I thought the movie does fall flat. And I think it was just my hype for a Martin Scorsese film, 1980s Martin Scorsese film. I was going into this, I thought it was going to be just a little bit more than what I got. And, it just didn't have that punch for me, you know? So overall, I think I settle with a B- on this film.
The Color of Money is a rare studio-driven picture by Martin Scorsese, but it is held together by two compelling leads, one reprising a past character and the other one showing everyone the kind of role that he can excel at. I really enjoyed this movie and found it to be quite entertaining and worth anybody's time for a rent. It doesn't quite hit a satisfying peak, but it's good enough to hold your attention from the beginning to the end. I give this movie a solid B. So guys, that's been our past review of The Color of Money from 1986. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Tell us in the comments what you think of The Color of Money, Paul Newman, Tom Cruise, and how cool pompadours and flipping pool sticks are. Also, check us out on Twitter. Follow us at Back2Feature. Also, remember to check out our 31 Days of Horror Advent Calendar. We'll be posting on our YouTube and our Twitter all throughout the month of October. We'll be bringing you a horror movie review every single day. We're not even halfway through the month, so it's a good time to jump on with us and get a little more horror in your month of October. I've been your host, Giovanni Carlo.
And I'm John Vandaloo.
And we'll see you guys next week.